Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a line comparison video of the entire Nike Tiempo line. This includes the Legend 6, the Legacy 2, the Mystic 5, and the Genio 2. So if you're having a hard time picking between these four models, this video should help you out tremendously. We're going to be talking about the differences when it comes to the uppers, the sole plate, the weight, as well as how these things all fit and feel. So if you are interested in learning more about the current Tiempo lineup, please stick around, watch the entire video, and keep in mind there will be links in the description to the review pages for all four of these shoes, where you will find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick up all four of these models below their normal retail prices. So again, if you're interested in any of these shoes, links are in the description. And with that being said, let's get right into the comparison. To start things off, let's compare the uppers. Now from left to right, I have the following shoes: the Legend 6, the Legacy 2, the Mystic 5, and the Genio 2. I did not include the Rio in this particular comparison, mainly because it doesn't relate to the rest of the Tiempo line. One, it doesn't have a leather upper. All of these shoes do. And two, it doesn't have the internal support cage, not to mention it doesn't have the same stud pattern either, which, like I said, just really separates itself from what these shoes have to offer. It's more of an extreme budget model. And again, if you're kind of more serious about playing, I guess, it's worth it to invest a little bit of extra money, even to the Genio 2, over something like the Rio, just because it's going to be a much better quality shoe. So in terms of how I would break up this line, obviously you go high end to low end, but I think there's two separate categories for these four shoes. At the first category, you have the Legend 6 and the Legacy 2, which I would consider to be more premium quality leather uppers that are going to offer the best of the best in terms of feel. With the Mystic 5 and the Genio 2, that's kind of in its own category, where the leather quality is obviously not as good as the higher end models, but it's still very good for the price range that these things fall into. So if you are on more of a budget, both of these are pretty good options and pretty good quality overall in terms of the leather upper that you're getting. Something that's consistent across all four of these models, besides them all being leather, is the internal support cage, which is clear to see on all of these shoes. Essentially, it's an internal foam support cage that sits underneath the leather material that really does a good job of reinforcing the upper without taking away from the softness and flexibility and just natural sensation that you would expect from a soft leather shoe. So really does a good job of, like I said, maintaining a good lockdown feel when you're making those quick cuts and change of direction. There's minimal rollover in all of these shoes. And again, you get all of that extra stability without any added stiffness to the shoe, which is kind of unusual, but a very, very positive feature across the entire Tiempo line here. Now, starting off with the Legend 6, this is going to be the only of the four models that does have a kangaroo leather upper. So obviously it's going to be the most premium, the best quality. The quality of the leather is very good. It's super soft out of the box, softens up even more after some wear time, and again, just feels absolutely fantastic. It has a nice padded sensation, but definitely doesn't feel overly bulky. Moves very naturally with your foot, and again, maintains a good responsive sensation overall. This is also the only model in the Tiempo line that features the ACC All Conditions Control feature from Nike, which essentially acts as your wet control element. The other feature that is exclusive to the Legend 6 is the one-piece construction to the upper. So you can see there is no physical tongue here in the middle. It's fused along the sides of the leather upper for the bottom four lace holes, or bottom four lace positions, I should say, since it's a dual lace hole system. So basically what this means is this part of the shoe, the middle part, is synthetic. It's slightly elasticated. It makes the shoe a little bit more difficult to put on and take off. But once it's actually on your foot, the shoe fits really, really snug even prior to tying the laces tight. And then when you pull on those laces, it locks everything in place really, really nicely and gives you an unusually seamless sensation from a more traditionally styled kangaroo leather soccer shoe. So you don't have any overlapping materials. There's a lot less bulk across the top of your foot. And again, it just feels very natural. So while it's one of those features that I know not everybody is a huge fan of, it was really, really well executed here on the Legend 6. And it's one of my favorite new features coming from the Legend 5 to the new Legend 6 model. Now, as far as the Legacy 2 is concerned, it does not feature kangaroo leather. Instead, you're getting a premium calfskin upper that I would argue is a little bit thicker than what you find on the Legend 6, but still very good quality. Pretty soft, especially once broken in. And again, there's not a whole lot to complain about here. You do not get the ACC feature, but what you do get is an interesting tongue design that's a little bit different in terms of its layout. So instead of being attached and being one piece on both sides, you have kind of a burrito style fold over tongue, which means that the tongue is actually attached for the first 4 lace hole positions on the medial side, but is not attached on the lateral side. So as you guys can see, the tongue would attach from here and then roll over across the top of your foot, kind of giving you more of a seamless wrap on the medial side, but not so much on the lateral side. It's something that feels really good. Not as good as what you get from the Legend 6, but it's still an interesting concept. And what's good about this is that, again, you're kind of having less overlapping materials here, especially across the top of your foot, which frequently makes contact with the ball. And 2, this prevents the tongue from sliding side to side. So it's going to maintain its position on top of your foot pretty much the entire time you're using them. It's not going to fall from side to side, which is a nice little feature as well. Moving on to the Mystic 5, this is where you're going to see a significant drop off in kind of leather quality. It's listed as a full grain leather. I believe it is some form of calfskin, but it's not quite as soft and not quite as thick either as what you're going to find on the Legacy 2. And in all honesty, if you're in that kind of $120 to $85 price range that these two shoes fall into, the Legacy 2 is the better option just in terms of overall quality and just the general kind of comfort and feel that the shoe provides. But like I said, the quality of the leather at the $85 price point here in the Mystic 5 is certainly not bad, and especially once broken in, the leather softens up significantly and they feel pretty good. It does have the same kind of tongue layout as what you're going to find on the Legacy 2, where it's attached here on the medial side, but the actual quality of the tongue synthetic is a lot lower, and honestly it's probably the cheapest aspect of this particular shoe. So again, for $85 it's still a pretty good value, but if you have the extra money to spend, I think the Legacy 2 is the better option. And then moving on to the Genio 2, this features, again, a full grain leather upper, very, very similar to that of the Mystic 5, almost identical, especially once broken in my opinion. So if you're trying to decide between the Genio 2 and the Mystic 5 is technically the better quality shoe, but the difference isn't all that significant. So if you just want a cheap leather shoe, you're very budget oriented, saving the extra $20 and going for the Genio 2 is something that you likely will not regret. No ACC, of course. Again, you get the same amount of leather as all the other models, and this shoe does not feature the kind of fold-over tongue or, of course, the one-piece design that you find on the other models above it. It features more of a traditional layout where basically the tongue is in the middle. It is kind of attached on the inside right here on the medial side, so it's still not going to slide from side to side, but for the most part you're going to put these on and they'll feel pretty normal. It's a similar system actually to what you get on the Nike Magista Opus, where it is actually attached on the inside of the shoe, but looks fairly normal from the outside. So again, as far as leather quality goes, it's half decent for the $65 price tag, a lot better than pretty much most other options out there in this particular price range. But again, if you want the best of the best, Legend 6 is the way to go. If you don't have the budget to spend $200 on a pair of shoes, the Legacy 2 is a really good quality option as well. And if you're trying to decide between the Mystic 5 and the Genio 2, and you just want a quality leather shoe at a pretty decent price, I think the Genio 2 may be the better pick over the Mystic 5. As far as sole plates and stud patterns go, there is almost no variation going from the top end Legend 6 to the lower end Genio 2. Now, basically what you're getting with all of these shoes is a TPU plastic outsole. It's fairly thin and very, very flexible, especially once broken in. All the studs are conical in shape in the forefoot, the main studs I should say. You have bladed support studs in the middle, one toe pick kind of mercurial-esque stud right at the tip of the toe, and then bladed studs under the heel. Because the studs are fairly long and narrow in profile, despite their conical shape, they still dig into the ground quite nicely and provide pretty aggressive traction overall, but because of their rounded shape, you never feel like you're locked in. You have that freedom to twist and pivot, plus you get really good stability from the bladed studs in the heel. So overall, as far as traction is concerned, while it may look more traditional, it's actually a lot more aggressive than you might expect and performs extremely well on firm natural grass. Now with the Legend 6, you're going to find that there's a flex groove right here running through the middle of the forefoot. It's very minimal and I would argue makes next to no difference in terms of how the shoe feels, whereas on every single other model, obviously the styling of the sole plate and the actual finishing is a little bit lower quality than the top end Legend 6, but the feel and general performance is pretty much identical. You can see here with the Legacy 2, it's all black, and really the only difference you're going to find aside from aesthetics is they've changed the flex point from here to a little bit further back in the forefoot. That, like I said, really makes no noticeable difference in terms of how this sole plate and stud pattern feels or performs. And I'll give you guys a look at all the other sole plates and stud patterns. Again, pretty much the exact same layout, exact same material. You're really not going to notice a difference going from high end to low end in this particular aspect of the shoe. So if you like the Tiempo stud pattern, you're stuck with it in all of these models. And like I said, it does perform the part, so there isn't much not to like here. For the sake of comparison, we're gonna weigh in all 4 models in real time using this scale so we can see what the difference actually is. Now keep in mind, these are all in brand new condition and all the exact same size, 9.5 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the top end Legend 6, throw it on the scale, and believe it or not, this is gonna be the heaviest model in the line at 8.7 ounces, the equivalent of 246 grams. So remember those numbers. We'll change the scale back to ounces, pull these off, throw on the Legacy 2, and you can see that they weigh in at 8.3 ounces, so about half an ounce lighter than the Legend 6. Nothing too extreme, but something that you may or may not notice on feet, depending on how sensitive you are to that kind of thing. 236 grams is the equivalent. So we'll change the scale back to ounces once again, pull these off, and throw on the Mystic 5, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.8 ounces. So they're about a full ounce lighter than the top end Legend 6, the equivalent of 221 grams. So we'll change the scale back to ounces one last time, pull these off, and we'll throw on the Genio 2, and you can see that they weigh in at 7.55 ounces, even a little bit lighter than the Mystic 5, the equivalent of 214 grams. So what's kind of unusual about the Tiempo line is that it gets lighter the lower end you go, which is definitely not the norm. The Legend 6 is the heaviest, followed by the Legacy 2, and then of course you have the Mystic 5 and the Genio 2 that are the lightest in the line, with the Genio 2 actually being the cheapest as well as the lightest. Is the weight difference significant between all of these shoes? Not necessarily. Obviously, being a full ounce lighter with the Mystic 5 and the Genio 2, it's something that you will notice a little bit on your feet, but for the most part, none of these shoes are heavy, and the main reason why the lower end ones are actually lighter is just because you have thinner materials, lesser quality leather, which is going to decrease the weight of the shoe. So lighter doesn't necessarily mean better in this particular style of shoe, and I would argue that in this particular situation, lighter is certainly not better, but I guess it's worth pointing out that the lower end models are lighter than you might expect them to be, and whether you're getting the top end Legend 6 or the Genio 2, you're really not going to have any issues with the weight of the current Tiempo line. In terms of fit and feel, the Legend 6 and Legacy 2 are both really good. On my right foot, I have the Legend 6. On my left foot, I have the Legacy 2. The main difference you're going to notice between these two shoes when you put them on your feet is, one, the leather is a little bit thinner and just a little bit more flexible and just softer in general on the Legend 6 versus the Legacy 2, but the Legacy 2 still feels very, very good. And the other thing you're going to notice is the construction of the upper, in that you have a one-piece upper on the Legend 6 that fits a little bit more snug, feels a little bit more seamless, and I would argue is just better overall. Whereas on the Legacy 2, it does feel a little bit unusual just because of how the tongue kind of overlaps your foot, but it's attached on one side. But like I said, it still feels comfortable. You get used to it very, very quickly. And they're both comfortable shoes. They're leather, so they take some time to break in. They're soft leather, so the break-in period is pretty easy and pretty straightforward, and after a few hours of wear time, you'll find that they soften up quite a bit and even stretch a little bit. And what's also great about both of these shoes is that internal support cage. So despite the shoes feeling very soft and flexible, especially after break-in, you still get this very nice locked-in sensation, and they're just much more responsive than any other soft leather shoe that I've personally ever worn, without taking away from the sensation of wearing a soft leather shoe, which is really just the unusual part of this new internal support cage system that they've implemented on the current Tiempo line. Fit-wise, they're going to be suitable for most people. They fit really well. I would say the Legend 6 is a little bit more snug because of its one-piece design versus the Legacy 2, but the leather and the cage itself doesn't seem to restrict the shoe from stretching width-wise. So in terms of width, they're going to be suitable for most people. Neither of them are excessively wide, but like I said, they'll fit most people. So if you don't normally struggle with the width in soccer shoes, you're unlikely to have any issues with these whatsoever. And as far as sizing is concerned, the Tiempo line runs about a half size small. So instead of wearing my usual size 9 US, I bumped it up to a 9.5 in both the Legend 6 and the Legacy 2, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of the new Tiempos, whether it's the top end Legend 6 or the lower end Genio 2, they all run about a half size small, so going a half size up is recommended, or just stick with the same size if you're coming from the previous Tiempo line, because like I said, sizing is the same. When you're comparing the Mystic 5 and Genio 2, the two shoes on feet honestly feel pretty similar to each other. So on my right foot, I have the Mystic 5, and on my left foot I have the Genio 2. The major difference you're going to notice between these two shoes is not really the leather quality, because yes, the Mystic 5 is a little bit nicer in hand, but on feet, the difference in the softness and thickness of the leather is pretty minimal. But what you will notice is the different construction in the tongue, where the Mystic 5 is more like the Legacy 2, and that it is directly attached to the actual upper on the medial side, whereas on the Genio 2, it's more of a traditional tongue construction where it's not really attached on either side. So it does have that little bit of freedom to kind of fall to the one side, but it's not a big issue because, like I said, it is still attached on the inside of the shoe. Again, both comfortable, especially at their respective price points. Again, if you're just looking for the best possible leather shoe at the lowest budget, I think the Genio 2 is a very, very solid option. And again, if you have these two shoes on your feet side by side, you're not going to notice much of a difference between the two, which, like I said, would make me recommend the Genio 2 a little bit more frequently than I might the Mystic 5, just because, like I said, they feel so similar. The heel liner on the Genio 2 is a mesh liner versus a synthetic leather on the Mystic 5, which I prefer the synthetic leather, but again, not really a deal breaker there. And as far as fit is concerned, the shoes have the same shape as the higher end models, so the general fit and feel is not too far off from what you're going to get from those higher end models, despite the leather quality not being up to the same standards. And width-wise, they're going to be suitable for most foot types as well. So as long as you don't have excessively wide feet, you shouldn't have any issues with either of these two shoes. Plus, you get that internal foam support cage, so they're pretty responsive for leather shoes as well, which is a really, really nice and arguably the best feature of the new Tiempo line. And sizing, exactly the same as well. They run about a half size small, the entire new Tiempo line does. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that is it for my comparison of the entire Nike Tiempo lineup. Hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, be sure to support it with a like. And if you have any further questions, be sure to leave those questions down below in the comment section. As far as which of the four is my personal favorite, obviously the top end model, the Legend 6, it's the best shoe in the line and just the best performer overall. So again, if you guys are interested in any of these four models, check out the links down below in the description to the review pages on my website, where you'll find buy it now links along with exclusive SR4U coupon codes. You'll be able to pick up any of the shoes in today's video below their normal retail prices. So again, if you're interested in any of them, links are in the description. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video, and as always, thanks for watching.